Guys, Mortal Kombat 2021 and the future Children of Blood and Bone movie adaptation, franchises like that excite me more than any future Marvel, DC, and Star Wars project. What do I mean by that? Guys, this is just a train of thought video. Specifically, what excites me about Mortal Kombat, the upcoming movie, and Children of Blood and Bone, more than Marvel, DC, and Star Wars for the foreseeable future, is three things, my big three. One is the world building expectations. Second is the type of action I'll see in those worlds compared to Marvel, DC, and Star Wars. And third is just the diversity of IP. So I'm going to explain it bit by bit. First off, the world building expectations. So I'll put it this way: one of the reasons I've stopped watching WandaVision, actually gave the most recent episode a try on episode 7, but I wish I didn't, because I've come to believe, for example, with Marvel, the MCU specifically, that I always have to dumb down my brain because I feel like they contradict themselves in their world building, and I have expectations that always let me down when it comes to Marvel. But in other ways, I feel that way about Star Wars too in the recent years. I have felt that way about DC, just not strongly, because I'm not as passionate of a fan as I am with Marvel, so it hurts more. But Mortal Kombat, to me anyway, because I never played the game, watched any of the older movies, the TV shows. Mortal Kombat, as well as Children of Blood and Bone, again, even though I've read the book, both of the film adaptations that will come up in the future will be relatively new for me, and therefore my expectations are, I'm anticipating them, but it's more because they're fresh and they're new to me, and I don't have to expect too much. They're very, at least in the first entry, I feel like they'll be more likely to be contained compared to watching something in the MCU where not only are you trying to be a good solo or a good thing on its own, but you have to web in everything else. And I just I don't know, I'm losing faith in the model of, I've lost faith in the model of the MCU a while back. And I'm just trying to be selective with what I like and dumb myself down to some degree. Secondly, the thing that excites me a lot about Mortal Kombat, Children of Blood and Bone over the big three mainstream franchises, right, is the specific type of action. Magic mixed with hand to hand or melee fighting with weapons like a sword, spear, whichever. I've seen this in the Mortal Kombat trailer, the way they treat Sub-Zero, and I imagine Scorpion, the way they're teasing him. I feel like I'm gonna see something that I've always wanted to see personally, which is essentially anime-like visuals. Stuff when I was younger, watching Dragon Ball Z, and I've seen bits of other franchises like Naruto, seeing people with like powers doing fantastical shit, but also doing hand-to-hand fighting with spears and sticks. In the franchise, in the book series, Children of Blood and Bone, which they're making into a film, there's a character called Zele Adebola who fights with a bow staff, a spear. And it has a lot of meaning to her and there's a backstory to it. But she trains with it and she knows how to fight with it, and she has a fight with it in the first book, which is glorious. And hopefully they don't let me down in the actual movie, because her powers also, she can raise spirits, Um, but it doesn't feel like something that makes her too OP. And the same thing with Sub Zero. It feels like that is a part of them, but it isn't something that ends every fight they're in. Do you know what I mean? At least that's my feeling from watching this. It feels like I'm gonna see worlds that I've always wanted to see, but taken more seriously. And the closest I've come to that personally, getting that type of action, is probably watching something like Scott Pilgrim. Whereas compare that to Marvel, I think there are characters who can fill that requirement. Like for it doesn't have to be Marvel. Star Wars, Jedi fill that requirement. They use, in my opinion, a form of magic, the Force, to move stuff with their minds, but they also fight with melee weapons, say lightsabers, right? Sword-like weapons. The problem is, to me, I feel like Mortal Kombat and Children of Blood and Bone go further with that, but it still feels contained in the world. It doesn't feel like it makes them OP characters, and I feel it will also remove that stigma of using magic in movies. Like magic, it's just like any superpower. There's an extent to it. There's limitations. It doesn't make you automatically like a a fight ender. It's not. It's not. It doesn't mean the end of a fight automatically every time someone uses magic. It just means they use it in certain ways and you can apply it to a certain situation. It elevates warfare for me in fantasy. That's why I love to see something like what I saw in the Mortal Kombat trailer and the stuff I've read about in the Children of Blood and Bone films more than a Marvel, a DC, a Star Wars project. And then lastly, my third big thing, but what excites me more about Mortal Kombat and Children of Blood and Bone, the upcoming film adaptation, is just the IP diversity. I don't necessarily mean just in a modern sense of the word of diversity. First and foremost, I just want more fantasy stories to be in the mainstream apart from Marvel, DC, Star Wars, right? I don't like the idea that for example, with DC, I've started to delve a bit into some of the comic books, and I feel like they don't do enough with the characters that aren't in Gotham. There's always about multiple in their film history, multiple movies about certain characters over others that I've barely know about and I've barely seen, and it just makes me sad. Same way I feel in Marvel. I mentioned before with the world building, I feel like it's been dumbed down, and I think a big reason for that with the MCU, for example, is because people were so in love with Tony Stark and Cap. They escalated their their powers and they made them more interesting at the expense of everyone else, and now it feels like they're overcompensating with WandaVision. Something that I really like. I really did like that series at first, but I don't know, I've fallen out of love with it, and it's reminded me of some of the issues that I had with Marvel Netflix and some of the other Marvel movies in the past. So hopefully, there's still. I imagine there's going to be positive things in the future for Marvel and DC and Star Wars too. I liked The Mandalorian, but Mandalorian is another thing where I felt like I had to dumb down in terms of the writing because it was to a fault. The hearts, Grogu and Din, their relationship was more appealing than the fact that stormtroopers are just cartoonishly stupid. No one thinks to like hire like an expert assassin to go after Mando who can cut in between the areas where he doesn't have armor on his body. There's so many things I'm like, why don't you do this and this? I don't want to invest as much in those franchises anymore. And having Mortal Kombat hopefully become a mainstream franchise with the upcoming movie and also Children of Blood and Bone, I look forward to those possibilities. But also to add on to that IP diversity, yes, I do think we need more like folklore from around the world to be adapted into mainstream stories, and I feel we need, for example, like a better excuse for why you can't make original IP um, that represents different people from different communities, instead of just doing race bending or gender bending in these movies and telling me, oh, that's the representation we need. No, we don't need that. Give me My Children of Blood and Bone, which for people who don't know is based on uh is influenced by a lot of West African mythology, Nigerian Yoruba um mythology to be exact. And obviously for people who know Mortal Kombat, there's a lot of Asian historic influences in that. And I look forward to seeing more stuff like that instead of just again race bending some white people and telling me that's diverse. The black guy playing so and so. No, no, it isn't. You guys let me know what you think down below. Is Are you more excited in general for like future Marvel, DC, stuff like the Snyder Cut, future like Star Wars projects with the TV shows that they're planning in general, or do you think we need to look to more fresh IP, quote unquote fresh? It's Mortal Kombat. It's been around since the 90s. Um, Outside of those big three, let me know down below what you think. If you like this video, press that thumbs up button, helps with the algorithm. Please share and check out all my other videos. Lastly, press that sub button. It's right there. Don't be shy. Other than that, guys, signing off. Salute.